how do you find those guys?
Chris Christensen, Bob Shore, who owns Bob's Produce Ranch, who was just a great guy, passed away last year. And Bob called me and said, I had a guy that worked for me for many years, and who was retired, and he's got one of the most incredible stories you'll ever hear. And so I gave Chris a call and had him on.
Well, now, when you said initially aviation show, I thought, okay, that could be interesting, once in a while, but I wouldn't know if that's something that I would spend time. But see, you tell stories. What else do you do within the context of that?
Well, we just, Rick Nelson's co-pilot on the DC-3 that caught on fire. He's been a guest on. The two pilots survived, but everybody in back, Rick Nelson and his band, all died. Yeah. And Ken Ferguson is his name. He's become a very, very close friend. And that is just a remarkable story, because they were flying. It was cold. It was January. January, so it was very cold. And the band manager came up and said, we're cold back there, we gotta flip the heater on. It's called a Genitrol heater in those old planes. And they turned it on, and within a couple of minutes, the circuit breaker tripped. And the pilots didn't turn it back on. When you're flying, when a fuse pops, you don't reset it. You don't want a problem like that. Well, the manager came back up again and said, hey, we're freezing back there. We got to turn this on. And he flipped it on and went back, and it popped again. And so again, the pilots, they just left it as it was. And the manager came up again, and he turned on. He said, leave this thing on. And the next thing he knew, there was a fire. And it started underneath in the back, worked its way up front, and by the time they were, screaming down from, I don't recall their altitude, it's like 27,000 feet. And they were engulfed in flames, and Fergie has burns all over his legs and his arm. We had to reach down to try and pull the flaps.
Sure.
Because they needed to slow the airspeed down, so you got to bring the flaps up. And very severely burned, and lucky to have survived. And the two pilots kicked out their side windows and bailed out of the plane. But it was an amazing landing that they did. But these are real stories that you can't make up.
See, as he's telling this, Terry, here's what I'm thinking. I didn't know I would have been interested in this, but Al found it. You cultivated it, and you brought it to life. And I'm sure with the guest as well. I can't even imagine what this would be like, having that person and you draw that story out of there. And this is what I'm talking about when we talked in the last segment about where is this going, and this customized for-market show that's going to replace Al. And I put that in quotes because you can't. Because I just don't know how, with everything getting more and more watered down and more corporate, we're gonna find and draw out these great stories anymore. That's one of the things that makes me so sad.
It's gonna go somewhere else, though. I mean, I think those stories will just go somewhere else. They're not gonna be on terrestrial radio anymore.
Don't mind my words, it's going to go in the back seat here.
Yeah, you two need a room.
Yeah.
But and that's the question. In fact, I was talking with another Twin Cities radio legend yesterday, who has also recently left the airwaves in the last month, and who we hope will come and make out with Henry with as much vigor as Al is in the next month or so. He's still reeling, but he said, I could totally do this online thing. You stopped. I could totally do this online thing, but he goes, how do you make it work, and how do people find it? And there's so many questions. And I think that's what we're all dealing with right now is, for the love of God. I forget what I was saying. Al, you are a saint. I have, like I said, a lint brush. Al is now.
Well, I'll need more all done.
Yeah.
And some slobber.
You got a little drool.
Oh, yeah.
Henry doesn't care what the future of broadcasting is.
Nah.
No,
he really
he
just wants
doesn't.
his ears
He
scratched.
just wants some
Maybe that's-
loving.
yeah,
Just some
that's
love,
big
right, Henry?
boy.
You were so cool. What a beautiful
I don't know what to
boy.
do. I don't know what to do. He's
Live at the loft.
Yeah, we're live at the loft.
Okay, you get down now, Henry, because we're going to talk here, okay?
Oh, are we gonna talk? Okay.
Okay.
We'll try
Henry,
this.
you come right here and you sit. Henry, sit.
See, this is where the
Henry,
embarrassment part comes in.
Sit. Sit.
You know what? If I bring his bed over, you know what? I'll pause.